Hello there, this is GAKUBA, also known as Mr. G, fifth grade teacher at Sauk Elementary, Tulsa Public School, where I teach social studies, science, work to read, which is reading innovation and writing workshop. I'm also an innovator, founder of Octagon, tech startup that focuses on edutech and innovation that education need in the 21st century. I want to welcome you today to our episode of our podcast focusing on virtual reality as a tool that we can use to transform or to tackle K-12 mental health. As educators, we are called to help students renew their minds, especially those battling mental health challenges. In 2025, virtual reality isn't just a tech trend. It's a lifeline for students with ADHD, bipolar, PTSD, autism, and more. Let's dive into how VR could revolutionize social and emotional learning and equip kids to thrive, not just to survive. As a teacher at Sauk Elementary and founder of Octagon, I have seen firsthand how acute mental health challenges like ADHD, autism, and PTSD, as I mentioned above, can derail learning. But what if VR could offer a lifeline to these students? Let's explore how immersive tech isn't just futuristic, but transformational. Let's take a case study in a classroom with 5 students facing 5 different mental health challenges. Student number 1 has excessive ADHD, struggles with focus and impulse control. And student number 2 has extreme autism spectrum, difficulty with social cues and sensory overload. Student number 3 has advanced untreated PTSD, triggers from loud noise and crowded spaces. And student number 2 is a case known as X, unidentified, undiagnosed, untreated, but is a mental issue in the classroom that you do not know how to describe. And student number 5 has a mixture of PTSD and the ADHD, and they're all on the extreme side of things. They have chaotic behavior compounded by trauma. In this episode, as we look into Romans chapter 12, verse 2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. We engage continuously into effort that help us know, renew what we know, learn and unlearn, and learn new things, new techniques, new tactics, new strategies, new ways of tackling the issues in the classroom. Those 5 students would be 5 out of 26 in a classroom, out of 24, minimum 23. Focusing on them would spend more than 60% of your time tackling behavior than having a teaching and learning moment. And before you know, you've lost your goal as a teacher. It is a crisis and it's very challenging. How do we settle it? How do we tackle it? How do we find innovative solutions to it? Can we take virtual reality and augmented reality as a result? Let's look into key statistics. 1 in 5 U.S. students face acute mental health struggles, yet only 20% receive care. This is a report according to Newport Academy. And this report goes on to say that untreated ADHD caused students 3 more academic setbacks by high school. Imagine a child with PTSD dissociating during a fire drill, or a student with autism overwhelmed by cafeteria noise. Traditional method often miss the kids. They miss these kids, but VR creates safe and renewing spaces where they can build their minds. Let's explore how. How do we use VR in action in this case studies? Let's start with the extreme ADHD. VR would bring up Focus Forest, which will be a gamified innovation that has tasks that collect focus point on a virtual rainforest, and which actually reduces hyperactivity by 40%. This is by the article of Bringing Virtual Reality to Mainstream Pediatric Care that was published in this year by the PMC and CBI. The renewing of the mind goes on. It's repetitive, it's engaging, and it gets to be more hands-on when it's an engaging exercise that retains attention. And for an autism spectrum, there's Social Simulation Lab, where a class VR virtual cafeteria lets students practice ordering food with AI, adjusting dialogue complexity. It has had an impact that shows 50% improvement in recognizing social cues after 8 sessions. This is according to govtech.com in what could AR and VR do for social and emotional learning. And for PTSD and trauma, there's a safe space exploration. A Helium VR mental hygiene station that use biofeedback to guide breathing exercise, lowering anxiety by 60%. And VR sessions have helped students hiding in a VR situation, hiding under desk during loud noise. We can explore more of that by Washington Town School Foundation, which developed a study on developing socio-emotional with virtual reality. In a case of bipolar disorder, there's an emotional regulation where VR has a mindfulness environment, which would be, for example, painting an icon cliff with Alloway VR, which helps students identify mood shifts. There is a science always behind transformation. There's a Stanford study that says that VR learners feel 75 times more emotionally connected to social-emotional learning content than traditional methods. And there are more researches we can look into, that, like the PwC research, that trauma-informed VR simulation improved decision-making skills by 4 times in higher stress scenarios. And there's also a meta-analysis study that shows that immersive VR boosts learning outcomes by 111% compared to textbooks. This isn't just tech, it's mind renewal. VR lets kids rewire neural pathways through experiential learning, aligning with Paul's call in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, the renewing of our mind. There's also a sense of equity and implementation. The challenge could be modular VR kit like Exxon's training pod that has cost that goes by 70% for underserved schools. And teacher training, which would cost a lot more money. In a school like mine, student using VR would weekly serve students from marginalized communities, 1 4th grader, 1 5th grader, 2 3 5th graders, until we could probably find funding to help kids or the entire community have access to these transformational tools. Friends, if you're listening to me, this is a matter that needs your attention. Our kids are not just broken. We cannot even go around saying the kids are broken. They are not broken. They're waiting for tools to renew, to transform their minds, and an opportunity for regeneration, and an opportunity to prepare them for their future school career. When we equip them with VR immersive social emotional learning, we're not just preventing college dropouts or even worst case scenario crimes. We are raising resilient leaders who know their worth. Let's build classroom where every child can prove what they're good at, which is the perfect will of God. Virtual reality is also a tool for immersive social emotional learning for the elementary school in the K-12 school system. As of 2025, virtual reality has emerged as a powerful tool for addressing mental health challenges and promoting social emotional learning in elementary schools within the K to 12 education. VR and AR offers immersive experience that can help students with acute mental health develop coping skills, practice social interaction, and engage in therapeutic exercises within a safe and controlled environment. There's a number of VR benefits for mental health in schools, especially in elementary school. I say this with a firm conviction that if we are able to fix the mental health challenges in elementary school, we are actually setting these kiddos up for success in middle school. And success in middle school at a high percentage, at that's a large extent, is also success in high school. Benefit number one, it becomes personal. It becomes personalized learning environment. VR allows educators to create customized virtual spaces tailored to each student's specific needs and challenges. And we also have reduced stigma by integrating mental health support into technology-based learning. Schools can normalize discussions around mental health well-being and reduce the stigma associated with seeking help. Also, accessibility. Accessibility is a big problem as we see it and reflect on how much students, those kids, especially in marginalized or low income or poverty neighborhoods, kids from those social economic status, do they have access? But with VR implemented or embedded in a school, the accessibility becomes not a problem at all. It becomes something they get to access every day. So VR is therapy session that can be conducted remotely, breaking down geographical barriers, and providing access to access to specialized mental health resources for students in underserved areas. There's also the application of VR in K-12 mental health support. Number one of all is anxiety management. Anxiety becomes a whole big problem that even the teacher finds himself fighting an uphill battle in one block, having more than one, more than two, more than three, even more than 5 students fighting anxiety. Some of them even lacking food, and knowing that you cannot provide or be the solution to all the problems, how do you manage anxiety in your classroom as a teacher? It becomes a big problem. But students can practice stress reduction techniques in virtual environment that stimulate anxiety-inducing situation, gradually building resilience and coping skills. There's also social skills training, because social skills, self-awareness, also social awareness and self-awareness, which both of them may prove to be lacking in most of the schools. But with VR, we have scenarios that can help students with social anxiety or autism spectrum disorders practice social interaction in a low-pressure setting. We also have mindfulness and meditation. Immersive VR experiences can guide students through calming exercises and meditation practices, promoting emotional regulations and self-awareness. Also, another aspect of it is the trauma-informed care. VR can be used to create safe spaces for students who have experienced trauma, allowing them to process their experiences with the guidance of mental health with health professionals, those health professionals who are certified as social workers and assigned to schools in a way that helps the educators and school administrators to know what they're dealing with and how best to deal with it. And now the problem comes to the implementation of those strategies. We cannot be able to effectively integrate VR mental health in tools without the following. Think about the teachers' training. Do we have teachers willing to be trained? Do we have our school administrators or superintendents taking this matter in hand and making it their own and seeing how much transformation would happen if teachers would be trained just as how to use this VR? Because the beauty or the most interesting, the most benefiting part of VR and AR is the fact that one social worker, one therapist in a classroom can serve multiple students at the same time. They could be in different rooms, they could be in different even schools, and this person sits in an appropriate setting and serves all these students. But there's no way this can be implemented if the teachers and the TAs and the subs as well, especially those who sub for a long time, if they don't have the proper training. We have to provide teachers with comprehensive training on how to use VR technology and recognizing also signs of mental health issues. You may not be formally trained on how to diagnose mental health or help students do self-diagnosis using technology, but VR could be used as a way. This VR training could provide teachers with the ins and outs of how to help students or how to help themselves identify, recognize signs of mental health issues. Also, the other part of the implementation strategy is the data-driven assessment. We need to utilize VR analytics to track students' progress and adjust innovations as needed. The needs and the assessments of everything has to be data-driven. Numbers do not lie. The computers will compute all the numbers that we have in absolute accuracy, and our assessment and decision-making will be data-driven. Number 3 for the implementation strategy is how much collaborative our approach is. So a collaborative approach is very important. Partner with mental health professionals should develop and oversee VR-based innovations. There has to be partners, the developers, a NedTech innovator like Octagon will develop things like this and bring them on the table and continually come to the schools, to the district, to teach the personnel and the staff, the teaching staff and the supporting staff on how to continuously improve. Because reality of technology is it cannot exist if it's not improved, if it's not updated. It's a continuous work, just as a scripture we read. The renewing is unending. It goes on and on and on and on. Number 4 in the implementation strategy is equity considerations. We need to consider equity, ensure that VR resources are accessible to all students, particularly those from historically marginalized communities. Those that we may call low income, those that we call poor families, students. They are poor, but they belong to us, and we should serve them quite as much as we are serving those with capacity to access those technologies by buying them from their own pockets. Equity is very important in the implementation strategy. Well, as I conclude this part of strategy, it is very important to know that by leveraging VR technology, K-12 schools can create more inclusive and supportive learning environment that address the complex mental health needs of their students. This innovative approach has the potential to transform how we support and integrate students with acute mental health challenges in educational setting. And as I said in the middle of this, and set them up for success for the rest of their schooling career in the middle school, in high school and in college, whether they choose to go in formal college or technical and career or pursue industry-based trades. What we are doing at the elementary level is setting them up for success or for failure. And we cannot afford to set those precious children for failure. And we cannot continue to let them be victims of something they did not create. If they have a mental health issue and it's acute and it's affecting the learning, not just their own learning, but the whole learning environment, affecting, interfering with the learning and teaching moments every now and then. If we don't fix it, then we are facing something on the horizon. And what I can see as an educator, if we don't fix this and if we don't use these technological avenues, what I am seeing on the horizon is nothing but a mayhem, which we cannot afford to accept as educators. Until next time, keep transforming. It was a great honor hosting you today. Have a great day.